Well, congratulations on Incognito.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Hey, so tell us that well, first of all, congratulations on the fact that it was part of the Beverly Hills Film Festival. How did you feel about that?
I feel it was a great experience. It's actually my second time that my film got selected by this film festival. My previous project back in 2018 was also luckily got selected. So it's great to see some of the filmmakers and programmers at the film festival, even though we're in this online setting. And it is a little different from the previous years where we could connect with other filmmakers in doing that in-person screening. But the beauty part of it is I got a few filmmakers who reached out to me after watching my film, and we got to connect even though we're in the online setting. So I was a little surprised by that, and I'm glad that we had that conversation after the screening.
Terrific. Well, Jacky, I'm going to throw this question off to you. Where did the original idea came from for Incognito?
The idea?
Yeah.
Yeah. So first of all, I feel like first of all, growing up, I always obsessed with a number of TV and film programs that based on those true events. And I never thought those stories could have such impact on me. But watching those shows and movies, like Chernobyl, Zodiac, those weird history movies and shows, really inspired me a lot when I was writing this story. And it really sparked my interest in writing this one. But there's one day. My one of my best friends who's also majoring in screenwriting at the same school shared a YouTube video about a time traveler, and I myself was intrigued by this event, and combined with my previous interest in those mystery, those movies based on true event, I eventually really buckled down to making this movie and bring this project to life. That video aroused my interest, aroused my curiosity, but I realized that the story itself is not compelling, not convincing enough. I got to do something with the writing. So I invited two other friends who I previously have collaborated with, and they showed their interest immediately, and then we worked together as a writing team. But to answer your question, that video itself formed the prototype of Incognito.
Wow. Autumn, didn't forget about you, but Autumn, you were wonderful in this short film. Talk about what sparked you to say, hey, I want to be a part of this.
Yeah, well, first of all, it was just so different from anything else that I'd seen at the time that was going around. And it just has so many layers. And as an actor, that's like all you want. You just want layers and complexity, and you want to play with all those different nuances. You have a period piece, so you have a character, you've got to do that research for the 50s. And then also you have the time travel element. So there's that element of a character being completely a fish out of water. And then you have the layer of my character has a secret that I will not give away because it is the twist of the movie. But that's just an added layer that needed some nuance so that it wasn't too obvious in the beginning, that once you realize what's going on, you're like, oh, got it. This makes more sense.
So, Autumn, for your transformation into that period character, how did it feel when you put on that costume and so on? Did it felt like you transported back in time in your own way?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. Yeah, it's funny how I come from the theater, so for me, costume is really huge. That's how I find my physicality. you know, prior to shooting, prior to having the costumes figured out, I started wearing the kind of shoes and painting my nails the way that they would paint their nails back then, just to start getting a feel for how would this character carry herself, how would the way that she carries herself change the way she speaks, and how would she speak with certain people versus how she speaks with the people who she's close to. At the time, there was a lot of expectation of how you should conduct yourself in public, that this character and her secret might not match up in private with the way that she is in public.
Jacky, you know, it's a challenge just to do a period piece, but you actually did it in 2 different periods. Could you talk about that?
Yeah, totally. It was fun. I always, try to do something different, and try to do something, something that's not from our era, not from the modern time. I was particularly intrigued by 1990 period. Well, of course, the story is based on the 1990. In the 1950, that era, what actually fascinated is about their costume, their the way people dress up when they're out on the street. But it's also a part of story. But in terms of the twist and the plot after the twist, I made it up. So because I wanted to see more about that era, I wanted to showcase how beautiful in the production design, both in the 90 and the 50. There are a lot of suspense movie that have a great production design back in 1950, and I really wanted to incorporate those elements with the costume and the production elements back in 1950. So it's very convoluted to combine all those elements together, because there's a lot of work involved, and we have to differentiate elements back in 50 from those in 90. It's a lot of work involved, but in order to accomplish that, we did a lot of digging in terms of what kind of style, what kind of format we should bring to this project.
Absolutely. I always find it funny for me to talk about a period piece, calling the 1990s the period piece when I actually lived through that. So, and I still have most of that stuff in that doctor's office, in fact. But
do you think matching? Do you think it's matching? The reality back in 1990.
I do actually think so. Yeah, I lived through it. It's sometimes when we live through it, sometimes we don't think about how important it is 20 to 30 years later. But I'm sure 20, 30 years from now we would be talking
right.
about
The transition is very distinct. Yeah,
absolutely. Now, but I do want to mention is that was a beautiful car that you actually put into the film. Where did you find the car? And then for Autumn, did you get to drive it?
Again, we've done a lot of research prior to the day of shooting. It's actually one of the major tasks, one of the most difficult tasks of finding that vehicle, because we have to consider, we have to take into account of other elements, the color from the costume, the color in the background. So I personally had a special request in terms of what color we should use for those vehicles. And it turns out there was a turquoise color from the vehicle props, the shop available during that time. And yeah, it took us quite a few weeks to eventually lock that vehicles, because there was another there was another project using it. So there's a lot of back and forth communication in order to to lock this vehicle and bring it to the set. But to answer your question, the color, there are a lot of aspects that we need to consider when it comes to production design. Oftentimes, the production designer would ask me, what kind of color do you have in mind that wouldn't interfere with other departments' work or your vision. And I personally have a whole document chronicling the color template of each props in the costume and the background location. So those are also very important elements to consider when it comes to directing a project.
And Autumn, did you get the chance to drive it?
I did not, which I was okay with. I was in the car while two of my co-stars had to be sort of coached through how to drive such an old car. They were both great sports about it. I don't know that I would have done it with the same confidence and finesse. There's actually a really great shot in the film where Greg is driving and Logan's got the camera not in the car but behind us, and we're driving. It's like just after dusk, and this owl flies right over the car, and sort of the car follows right behind the owl, and it was just a complete accident. And I remember watching the owl fly in front of us and being like, this is going to be a great shot, and it turned out so cool.
Yeah, that turned out to be a great production value, because normally if you want to rent an owl from the production perspective, might took a couple grand for that owl. So yeah, I'm really glad that we captured that shot precisely, and eventually we used that shot in post production.
Wow, that's excellent. And Jacky, could you talk about the cinematography and the usage of colors in your film, because it's a visual spectacle.
Yeah, of course. I typically, when I direct a project, I would do a lot of research and use a lot of movie references to try to help my cinematographer get better understanding what my vision looked like. But again, the cinematographer that I brought to this project, Logan, we worked on other projects prior to this Incognito. So I think we built the chemistry early on during the pre-production phase. And the way we work together is pretty much I come up with a shot list and storyboard. But there's another fun part working with the animator, mapping out my thoughts and vision on the storyboard. And then I would then transition to the stage where Logan and I discuss all the possibility of pulling off those shots, because there's some difference between making animation and movies, and oftentimes in movies we have to consider the environment, the shooting environment and location aspect. So me and Logan went through all the shot lists, shot by shot, and we actually visited the actual location to make sure that every shot is realistically possible to be accomplished. So that process is something I, as a director, truly enjoy about, and working with all the creative crew and tell them to convey my vision to each department heads. Like, those are the unforgettable experience during the completion of this project.
Great. Well, let me leave with one more thought, because obviously the world has gone a little bit bonkers, and for the past 12 to 13 months, and we are all looking forward to, opening hopefully soon this summer. But in the meantime, during this past year, how did each of you stay sane and creative during this time?
Well, I adopted a lemon tree, so that's been taking a lot of time. I have to water it every day, which is a lot for me. But more creatively, I've actually been developing my first feature film with my husband. He's writing it. We're kind of developing the story together. So that's been taking up a lot of time, thankfully. and just making a couple of short films here and there, and doing a lot more reading. Getting back into reading has been nice.
Right. What about for you, Jack? Last word.
You know, on one hand, pandemic does take a toll on the industry and a lot of filmmakers. But on the other hand, there's never been a better time to find a quiet place and consume content and improve our mind. I personally pretty much write every day for my feature and watch tons of shows and movies since the day one of the pandemic. And you know, there's always other ways, some other ways we could develop our mind and engage in this creative process while, you know, staying put at our place. And I think if a person is truly a creative person, they will always find a way to stay creative without being restricted by the circumstances. So to me, you know, consuming TV shows and movies and keep writing every day is the best practice as a filmmaker.
Awesome. Well, Jackie, Autumn, hey, congratulations once again for Incognito, and thank you for speaking with us about your lovely short film.
Thank you so much for having me.
What a great opportunity, Jake.
Hey, thank you. Bye now.
Bye.